You're listening to the Fierce Valley Podcast, episode 147. What if you want to support a fat person to lose weight? Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello and welcome to this episode. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. So this episode is for everyone, but specifically this episode is for people who are fat or who are pursuing intuitive eating or health at every size, or just, living life as a fat person, and they have someone who is in their life who is worried about the fact that they are fat, is worried about the fact that they are not losing weight. And this is to play for them. Okay, so this episode is for the person who is concerned about a loved one, concerned because they are fat and are concerned about their health and has hopes that their loved one will lose weight. Everyone can listen to it. I mean, you probably want to, the fat people probably want to listen to it just to make sure I don't, I don't know what I might say, but I know what I'm going to say, but feel free to listen to it, even if you're not someone who's telling someone to lose weight. It's probably going to be quite cathartic, right? It's probably going to hear the things that you wish that you would have heard, or someone would say to someone that loves you, who is concerned about you. So I've been thinking about this episode for a really long time, and I keep putting it off because I'm worried that it's going to be imperfect. And the thing is, it is going to be imperfect. I'm so concerned about this might be the only chance that I have with folks who are not currently fat positive, and I want to make it so impactful and so informative and make it understandable so that something good comes out of this, right? And I realize that this can't be perfect. This is not going to be the perfect response to all of the questions that you might have as someone who loves a fat person and is concerned about it. And there's going to be this like what if situations, but I've thought about all of the common things that I hear from people who I'm working with who say, but what about this? But what about that? But what about blah, blah, blah? And answer those things for you. Okay. And as well, I was thinking about this, like, why do I want it to be perfect? Well, because I was thinking it's because what if someone is listening in bad faith? What if someone is listening to say, like, fuck you, Vinny, you're a piece of shit, and kind of picking apart every single word that I use, type of thing. And you know what? The episode is not for those people, not for people who are not listening in good faith and open to hearing a different perspective. And so really I'm talking to people who genuinely care about fat folks and love them and want what's best for them, right? Not for people who are like, I hate fat people and nothing that you say is gonna change that. If that's you, then, I mean, then I don't know. Listen in. Maybe you might have your mind changed. Probably not. But this is for people who are listening in good faith. All right. So I started thinking about this episode because I came across a Am I an Arsehole on post on Reddit. If you're not familiar with it, it will normally start AITA, am I the arsehole, right? And so the am I an arsehole, so the person will ask on Reddit, what do you think? What does everyone think? And then people will say, I think you are an arsehole. I think everyone sucks here, or nobody is an arsehole. or something else. And this is a post that I read. I'm going to read it out to you. And by the way, for those who are listening who are fat, I'm going to be using the O words during this, and I might be mentioning some weight or, pounds and things like that. I will, just a heads up, if that's, I'm going to be taking it out as much as I can, but some people might not understand our our in fat language type of thing. Okay, so this is a post which has since been deleted, but I'll leave a link on for there's a what is it called, Wayback Machine. You can go back to old Reddit posts that have been deleted in case you ever wanted to know that. You can do that. So I'm 27 years old, and I have a girlfriend of 6 years who I live with. When we first got together, she had an athletic body, and all that changed the past couple of years when she got promoted and started working longer hours. She has started smoking weed every night, claiming that it helped her relax after a hard day's work. She also started eating like shit. She's about 19 pounds heavier than when we first met, and on her 5'2" frame, it definitely shows. After ignoring my subtle hints for the last year, I finally sat her down last month and said enough is enough. She needs to make an effort to get healthy. She agreed and asked me to help since I'm in great shape myself. I did everything to support her in losing weight. I paid for an expensive supplement program. I woke up early in the morning and prepared her healthy lunches so she could take to work. And when she got home from work, I had a healthy dinner prepared on the table. I added her to my gym plan and even bought her a road bicycle. Today I borrowed her car and found fast food wrappers everywhere, along with receipts of recent purchases. This led me to check our joint bank account, and I saw she's been picking up fast food every day since we've had that discussion about her getting healthy. Not only that, she also was buying fast food during work, suggesting that she's been throwing away the meals I have prepared. This really pissed me off. I confronted her, and she started crying and took accountability for her lack of discipline. I was telling my girlfriend's sister about this ordeal, and she said I was being controlling and an asshole. But from my perspective, I simply just want her to be healthy. I think I went above and beyond in my approach in how I dealt with this. Being 5'2" and gaining 19 pounds of fat rapidly, and she's only getting heavier. She's setting herself up for heart disease, diabetes, and could cause issues to her knees. Also, we don't even have kids yet, so to be gaining this type of weight so rapidly is definitely concerning to me for her health. Okay, so I read that and I was like, I really wish that I could have a one-on-one conversation with this person. And now this might sound like you, this might be your situation, or you could say, oh, I'd never be so mean as to do what this person has done. I am just worried about my loved one's health, and I just say, I'm worried about your health and I think you should lose weight, or I'm not quite on board with this whole whatever they're doing. And so this might be very similar to you, or might be completely different. But I thought this was a good starting point for talking about what has gone wrong here, and what maybe could happen in this situation, what should have happened in this situation. Okay, so the first thing to know, it's very well established that intentional weight loss diets, so any type of intentional weight loss, whether that be through a fad diet or through something that's, quote, kind of sensible or reasonable, something that's structured, something that's well established, or something that's like, drink this tea to shit your pants, that's all called intentional weight loss. All forms of intentional weight loss don't work in the long term. So you might have seen in life, depending on how long you've been alive, that people go on diets and they lose weight, and then eventually the weight comes back on. Now, the reason why people will view that, people who are maybe not up to date on weight science, and will say, well, it's because the person did something bad. It's the person's fault for not following the diet. That's what I thought. When I started dieting, I was like, I'm going to be the best motherfucking dieter ever, because all these other people who don't lose weight, it's because they're lazy and they're greedy and they can't control themselves. They don't have self-discipline. That's actually not the case. The failure rate of diets is incredible. It's 95 to 98%. Now, I have a document with the research about why and how diets fail. And we have data dating back to, 100 years worth of data, basically, showing that dieting doesn't work. And so a lot of people will say there's that one study in the 1950s that has a 95% failure rate, and that's all we've got. But that's actually not true. We've got many, many, many studies to show that weight loss, intentional weight loss, is not sustainable, and that there is a risk in the act of losing weight. And I'm just gonna go through a few. I'm not going to go through everything because we'd be here for a long time, just to kind of pick it out. And also, I'm going to give you access to this spreadsheet that I've got with the evidence here that we're talking about, all the studies, and so you can go and have a look and be like, was Vinny talking shit, or was this study good and valid, and all that type of stuff. Okay, so the first study we're talking about is from 1959, and this is the one that is typically credited with the 95% failure rate on diets. And what it does is it looks at the previous 30 years of data. So 30 years before 1959, they were looking at this data. They were looking at all that data from 30 years previously. And what they say in this is... hundreds of papers on treatment for, so the word obesity, I'm going to censor out because it's not a good word. It's like I can go on tangents and about lots of things, so I'm just going to say the O word, okay, for obesity. So literature, hundreds of papers for treatment on O word have been, let's just change it to fatness. Okay, so for fatness have been published in the past 30 years. Most, however, do not give figures on the outcome of treatment, and of those that do, most report them in such a way as to obscure the outcome of treatment of individual patients. Okay, and so this is what happens with diets and weight loss science. So using our critical thinking skills, a lot of what weight loss science does is it will say it works on these people, but then if you look at how many people it's worked on and how much weight they've lost and how long that weight has been kept off, the numbers are always unimpressive, very, very, very unimpressive. And so they kind of do a lot of, smoke and mirrors type of thing to make us who don't look into the actual study to say, okay, well, it worked, from Pam from Ipswich lost 40 pounds. So, and then they'll have that little asterisk that says results not typical. And we get into that kind of, well, I'd be the one that it would be typical for because I really do want to lose weight. Okay, so then we go to 1992. We've got the National Institute of Health, who says that in controlled settings, participants who remain in weight loss programs usually lose approximately 10% of their weight. However, 1 to 2/3 of the weight is regained within 1 year, and almost all of it is regained within 5 years. And so here, this is a pretty common thing: is people will lose a certain amount of weight, and it's they're saying here it's around 10%. And so, say if someone is 200 pounds, they would be losing 20 pounds, which is not this significant life-changing amount. But then within a year to 5 years, almost all of it is regained and more. And what is happening is the body is doing some awesome stuff to make sure that we go back to the weight that our bodies is used to. So chemical processes are happening. Our set point weight, every time that we intentionally try to lose weight, our set point weight goes up and up and up. And so that is called weight cycling, also known as yo-yo dieting. And it's just a natural reaction from the body when it is put into perceived famine. is to say, holy shit, what is happening? We need to maintain the fuel that is coming in and not burn it off too much because we're in a period of uncertainty, which is an amazing thing that our bodies do. But for those who do want to lose weight long term, it can make it literally impossible. All right, so if we move to 1999, how effective are traditional dietary and exercise interventions for weight loss? Quote, long-term follow-up data are meager. So that's a thing again, is that we don't have that long-term data. The data that do exist suggests a complete relapse after 3 to 5 years. A brief survey of the most popular dieting techniques used over the past 40 years shows that most techniques cycle in and out of popularity, and that many of these techniques may be hazardous to health. The paucity of the data provided of the weight loss industry, so the paucity is scarcity, industry has been inadequate and inconclusive. Those who challenge the use of diet and exercise solely for weight control purposes base their position on the absence of weight loss effectiveness data and on the presence of harmful effects of restrictive dieting. So when we say restrictive dieting, that means dieting where calories, fat, whatever is restrictive. So that's any amount of dieting. All right, so we have studies from 2007, 2010, 2013, another from 2013. The Australian National Medical Health and Research Council on Obesity said that weight gain is recommon after weight loss, and that is achieved with lifestyle interventions. Weight loss is maximal at 6 to 12 months, regardless of the degree of initial weight loss. Most weight is regained within 2-year period, and by 5 years, the majority of people are at their pre-intervention body weight. And that is grade A evidence. So grade A evidence in Australia means that it is so well researched. It is, grade A evidence in Australia is smoking can cause cancer. That's grade A evidence. It's like not disputed. It is so well understood that is something that happens. It's grade A evidence. The dieting doesn't work is grade A evidence in Australia. Okay. A study here from 2015, the probability of a fat person to gaining normal weight. The annual probability of achieving normal body weight was 1 in 210 for men and 1 in 124 for women. The probability declined with increasing BMI category. In morbidly obese patients, there's quotations around that because that word is made up. I guess like all words, but it's really fucked up. Anyway, in morbidly obese patients, the annual probability of achieving normal weight was 1 in 1,290 for men and 1 in 677 for women. In women, the probability of achieving normal weight among super obese participants were 1 in 608, which is similar to that observed among morbidly obese patients. In the smaller number of super obese men, the probability was higher at 1 in 362. So it's very unlikely that we can become thin long term. The most recent study that came out in 2021, I'm going to talk about this one. This is called Obesity Treatment, Weight Loss versus Increasing Fitness and Physical Activity for Reducing Health Risks. Again, all of these are going to be linked in, I've got it in a spreadsheet. You're going to have the link to the spreadsheet. But let me just quote from that. So the paper cites 225 other papers. Okay, so it analyzes and it does a meta-analysis. So it's not just one study, it's looking at 225 other papers. Quote, "We propose a weight-neutral strategy for obesity treatment on the following grounds. 1. The mortality risk associated with fatness is largely attenuated or eliminated by moderate to high levels of cardiorespiratory fitness." So that's called CRF, the acronym CRF, cardiorespiratory fitness. So, moving your body. Or physical activity. So PA. So CRF, cardiorespiratory fitness, or PA, physical activity. 2, most cardiometabolic risk markers associated with obesity can be improved with exercise training independent of weight loss and by a magnitude similar to that observed with weight loss programs. 3, weight loss, even if intentional, is not considered associated with lower mortality risk. Okay, so losing weight is not associated with lower mortality risk. 4, increases in CRF or PA, so that's exercise, are consistently associated with greater reductions in mortality risk than is in intentional weight loss. And 5, weight cycling, that's the yo-yo dieting, that's just dieting, right? Doing a diet and then the diet failing and doing another diet. Weight cycling is associated with numerous adverse health outcomes, including increased mortality. Importantly, importantly, overweight and obesity in conjunction with moderate to high CRF were associated with a lower death rate than adults in the unfit to normal weight category. Okay, so if you are a fat person who exercises a lot, your death rate is lower than someone who is a straight size person, so someone who is not fat, who doesn't exercise. CRF does not eliminate the CVD mortality risk associated with high BMI. Nonetheless, the data illustrate that low CRF is more hazardous than a high BMI. Okay, so it is more hazardous to not exercise than it is to have a high BMI. In fact, the data in Figure 2 clearly shows that risks associated with higher BMI within both the fit and unfit groups are much lower than the risks associated with low CRF regardless of BMI. Data on 21,925 men in the Aerobic Center longitudinal study demonstrated that lower all-cause and cancer mortality risks associated with higher levels of muscular fitness were independent of BMI, waist circumference, and percent body fat, and that the lower risk was observed even after associated with reduced mortality risk. Even in those studies that demonstrated a benefit of weight loss, it is not clear whether the weight loss itself was the primary factor that reduced mortality risk. This is because the RCTs included in the weight loss meta-analysis invariably incorporated changes in diet and/or exercise, either as a program that participants could attend or as advice. As discussed in subsequent sections, increases in physical activity are consistently associated with reductions in mortality risk independently of changes in weight. Okay, so what that is all saying in a lot of language is that that it's not weight that causes losing weight doesn't cause reduced mortality risk. Okay, what does is physical activity. Okay, and they're saying is, you know, when someone goes on a diet and they see improvements in health, it is not because of losing weight, it is because they have engaged in health promoting activities like physical activity. So a big disclaimer here is that physical activity is just one of many different ways that we can change health or what promotes health. Okay, so I don't want you to take from that like, right, I'm going to tell my fat person they need to go for a run because it will make them healthier. Please do not take that from it. We're going to talk about what is health and what makes up health in another section here, but this is just showing that if you are a fat person and you engage in physical activity, your mortality risk is lower than someone who is a straight size bodied person, someone who's not fat and who doesn't work out. All right. Again, that doesn't mean that, okay, so that means that 1, fat people have to work out, or 2, even that it's suitable for all fat people to work out, or that even all fat people can work out, right? And also, physical activity for some fat people is actually really harmful for many different reasons, mentally and physically. Okay, and so what we're trying to do is take a holistic approach to this. Is to take a instead of black and white thinking of, here's the answer, this is what we need to do. Okay, what does this mean for each individual? Is this helpful for each individual? And it might be that someone loves working out, and that's great. And if someone doesn't like working out, that's fine too, because there's other ways that we can engage in health if we want to. But also, health is not an obligation that other people owe us. All right. Okay, so one thing, intentional weight loss doesn't work, all right? Number 2 here is that being fat doesn't equate to being unhealthy, okay? So you cannot look at someone's body and presume that they are unhealthy or that they will become unhealthy. We do not know individual people's health statuses. Fatness is linked with an increased risk of certain conditions, as we have been told a million times over. The thing is we don't know why. Okay, we don't know that having more fat tissue, adipose tissue on your body, is the causation of the increased risk. Okay, we don't have that science yet. We don't know. There are certain identity factors that people can have, like say being a man. We know that generally speaking, men live not as long as women. We know that if you live in France, for example, you'll live longer than if you live in the United States. Is that because that person happens to live on this certain piece of land? Is that because someone has a certain gender? Or are there really complicated issues that go along with it? So, for example, you live longer if you live in France. Is it because of the healthcare that's accessible? Is it because of working hours? Is it because of XYZ, right? And there's lots of different factors that can go in. And we can think of that very easily of, it's not that they physically live in France, they stand on that ground that is called France. It is because of all these different things that are going on. And it's the same with fatness, right? What we do know about fat people and health is that something that is really, really damaging towards fat people's health and everyone's health is marginalization and stigmatization, is oppression. And so fat people experience a shit ton of, hey, you should lose weight. And that actively damages our health, right? Stigmatization, marginalization doesn't feel good. And also what happens is it leads a lot of fat people to not seek out healthcare, to not go to the doctors, and then not get diagnosed as quickly, or even if they do go to the doctors, having their concerns ignored and told to lose weight. And that contributes towards discrepancies in, fat people are more likely to, experience this or that. And because why would you want to go to the doctor if you go in and every time you're just told to lose weight? It's pretty difficult, Okay, so in these studies here too, we've got a study here that goes over all of the different common things that you would think is associated with fatness, like diabetes or heart disease or whatever, and looks at whether dieting helps improve it outside of weight loss. And spoiler, it doesn't, right? So we don't know someone's health status by looking at them, and also being fat doesn't equate to being unhealthy. And also, what if someone is fat and unhealthy? Does that mean that they are an unworthy human being, that they should just go away? No. And so then what's the solution? Say if we knew 100%, absolutely, every single fat person on the planet is deeply unhealthy. They're just ticking time bombs, and they're going to take everyone down with them. What's the solution? We know that we can't lose weight. There's a very, 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 very small chance that we can, and even the act of trying to lose weight is harmful to health. So what's the solution? Even if you can't get behind the fact that weight and health is a lot more complicated than what we have normally known. So you can say I can't get behind that, Vinny. Like, fat people are obviously unhealthy. That's fine. Well, what can we do? Weight loss doesn't work, and that's grade A evidence that weight loss doesn't work. There's no kind of like, oh, hang on, we don't have a lot of evidence. We have so much evidence. So much evidence. It's like vaccines. The amount of evidence of supporting, vaccines don't cause autism, because people are like, oh, it does. And it's like, we don't need any more studies to show that vaccines don't cause autism. I mean, we do always need more studies about this fat thing because it's so well entrenched, right? But it's kind of like, that's the way I view it. It's like, there's so many studies. Okay, so number 3, you can support your health in weight neutral ways. Okay, so we touched on that earlier, of those studies showing that if you engaged in physical activity, you have a lower mortality risk than someone who doesn't, who is smaller and you're fat. So there's lots of different ways that you can support health without tying weight loss to it. Okay, so there's this study which is linked in the spreadsheet under Weight Neutral Care Does Work. Okay, so it's called Weight Science, Evaluating the Evidence for a Paradigm Shift. It came out in January 2011. And what this does is it looks at folks who are dieting and engaging in health promoting behaviors, and folks who are just engaging in health promoting behaviors and not dieting. What they found was the people who were dieting and also engaging in health promoting behaviors, they were unsuccessful because diets don't work, and unsuccessful in losing weight long term, and also they stopped engaging in health promoting activities because they presumed that they weren't working because they weren't losing weight. And so the people in the group who were just engaging in health promoting activities just for the fun of it, they did continue with those health promoting activities when they were outside of that marker of weight loss being a success. They weren't even looking at weight. They were just doing those things. And so when we have health promoting activities outside of weight loss, people tend to do them longer because they don't feel like they're failing because weight loss doesn't work, and they say, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not working, because it's not getting to me to where I want to go, which is lower weight. But if we really looked at, is it getting me to a place where I might be healthier, then that is potentially happening. We have another couple of studies here showing that healthy habits were associated with significant decrease in mortality regardless of BMI. Also, we have an interesting paper here that is called I Think, Therefore I Am. Perceived ideal weight is a determinant of health. And so this found that the difference between actual and desired body weight was a stronger predictor of physical and mental health than body mass index. And so if we continue to shame fat people and they internalize that shame and say, yeah, I am a terrible person because I'm fat, that will have a negative impact on their physical and mental health, versus if we support fat people in just living, being humans, and they are able to internalize those ideas of ideal body weight and what that looks like for them, and then they're able to accept that fatness is not their fault, and engage in behaviors that improve their mental and physical health, and also the other mechanisms that might make that happen. And so you can support your health in weight neutral ways, but health is really a really complicated topic, and shaming fat people is very, very unhelpful. And so, we spoke about exercise as being something that could influence someone's health. The World Health Organization and many countries came together to look at the data of the determinants of health, what makes up health for an individual. And the determinants of health is really, really complicated. And it was very, very surprising to me that what you eat and how much you exercise are not the number one things that make up someone's health status. They're not even number 2 or 3 or 4. We're going to talk about it, and you can go and have a look at the images. So if you Google GOINVO, GOINVO, and determinants of health, you can go and have a look at a huge diagram, or I have one which is simplified as well on my Instagram. But 89% of health occurs outside of the clinical space through our genetics, behavior, environment, and social circumstances. These factors are known as the social determinants of health. Despite their importance, attempts to integrate the determinants into a single visualization has been limited, and so then they've got the illustration. Okay, so most of what makes up our health is not our individual behavior. Okay, individual behavior makes up 36% of health. Okay, inside that 36%, you're like, you might think, well, I thought, okay, well, that means, are you eating broccoli and are you going for a run? Actually, inside that individual behavior, what we see is if you smoke, if you have safer sex, if you get enough sleep, your mood levels, and your exercise patterns. So we've got, your optimism level, your life satisfaction level, your cognitive function in late life, your risk-related behavior like gun behavior, motor vehicle behavior. Do you wear a seatbelt? Are you living with anxiety, depression, stress, and hopelessness? And then the final 2 in here, physical activity and diet patterns. Okay. Let's just pretend individual behavior is 100% just physical activity and diet patterns. It still only makes up 36% of what makes up health. Okay. The others, social circumstances, that is your social connectedness, your social status. So your income, your language and literacy level, education, your occupation, your culture and tradition, your race, ethnicity, your citizenship, your sexual orientation, if you've served in the military, your gender identity, history of incarceration, discrimination, and work conditions. 22% is genetics and biology. And that under genetics and biology, we have body structure, and that is weight, height, weight-hip ratio, and age. So the World Health Organization is recognizing that weight is down to genetics and biology. Okay, so underneath that here too, we have like bone density, blood pressure, nutritional status, biochemical function, your DNA, your gender, chromosomes, things like that. Okay, 11% is medical care, so access to healthcare, quality of healthcare, patient engagement, and health literacy. If we think about that with patient engagement, how fat people might engage with formal medical care settings, and what happens when they're there. And finally, 7% is the environment, and so that's pollution, exposure to tobacco, air quality, water quality, the location, crime level, job opportunities, public space quality, access to vocational training, residence quality, exposure to firearms and allergens. Okay, so a reminder, 36% of what makes up someone's health status is individual behavior, and only one of the things underneath that, and there's many different things here, is diet, and only one is physical activity. So we're not saying that those things don't matter, but say if you can't engage in physical activity or don't want to, you can decide to do things like improve your sleep patterns. You can decide to ask for a raise at work. You can maybe not expose yourself to firearms or wear a seatbelt, And so when we think about health, are we thinking about, okay, where do I live? What color is my skin? How much am I making? We don't think about that, which is unfortunate because that is, the complex picture of what makes up health. And it's a lot easier just to say, don't eat this and move your body because, that's very simplified and it makes us feel like we have more control over our health than we maybe do. So the next thing here that I want to talk about is, what are you trying to achieve by telling a fat person to lose weight? I'm going to presume that it's because you care about their health, right? That's wonderful. If you care about someone and you care about their health, that's a wonderful thing. That shows what type of person you are. You're a caring and loving individual. Something we also want to care about is not just physical health, it's mental health. And what happens if you say to a person that they need to change for whatever reason, and how that affects their mental health. So if you care about their physical health, you should also care about their mental health and know that this is probably having a negative outcome to their mental health. And telling someone in a, quote, nice way or encouraging them to do certain things is still just as harmful, right? Like, we get it, if you're dropping subtle hints that someone should lose weight, or if you just say, listen, you're fat and you shouldn't be, you're fat and you shouldn't be is harmful, but being, quote, nice about it is still harmful, and it might be that the being nice about it and the like gently dropping hints is kind of like a drop of water, or like a paper cut and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts, or it's like a ton of feathers. Each little thing is like a feather, but then eventually a ton is a ton, right? Yeah. And also, if you're worried about health, like, no one owes you health. Even though it would be great if everyone was like 100% healthy, they just did what we wanted them to do, right? I would say this all the time. I wish I could control people and just make them think like me or do things like me. Unfortunately, I can't. And unfortunately, you can't, right? And no one owes you to do anything with their body, even if it means that they have negative health outcomes. And focusing so much on health, there's a name for that. And that's called healthism. And that is valuing people because they are healthy, and valuing unhealthy people less. That is a arm of ableism, which is saying that to be non-disabled is superior to being disabled. Disabled folks, we don't need to think about them. People with disabilities are, negative in some way, right? People are going to be unhealthy, and as we continue to be alive in this world, as we get older, we're going to become more and more unhealthy. We're going to become disabled. And so our current health status, if you are someone who's currently very healthy, that's not necessarily something that is going to stay the same forever, because you're going to die. Sorry. So, I mean, if self-worth is being derived from health, then it's something that is going to be slipping away from you eventually. And so, is someone worthy outside of their health status? You could say, yeah, but Vinny, you said that fat people can be healthy, whatever. I know my loved one is so unhealthy. I see what they do. I know it doesn't matter. if you see them doing things that you don't agree with, and you perceive them to be unhealthy, or you quote know that they're unhealthy, whatever unhealthy means, you can't force them to do what you want them to do, right? Which I know is annoying. I wish we could. And as well, when I think about health, it's really interesting. Like I remember going to the doctor's one time, and it was like an annual checkup or whatever. And the doctor said, "You are very healthy." And as she was handing me a prescription for all the medicines that I need to take to be healthy, and I just thought, then I talked to the pharmacist. I said, "Isn't that really funny?" Like, she said, "You are healthy," as she is giving me things because I'm not healthy. But what is healthy? What does that mean? Giving me prescriptions for like my asthma or my thyroid or mental health stuff and IBS and blah blah blah. So then, am I healthy or am I not healthy? What is it? It's complicated, right? And so, like, would I class myself as a healthy person? The doctor said I was healthy, but I have things where my health is not good. I don't know. It's complicated. So, kind of thinking it like that is, a more nuanced thing. And also, why is it that we think about certain conditions more favorably than others? So, say if someone broke their leg, you'd be like, oh dear, they broke their leg climbing a mountain. Oh, wow. They were doing something really good and they broke their leg. What if someone who was fat fell out of their wheelchair and broke their leg? Then how would you think about it? Or what if a fat person has diabetes? What would you think about that? Versus a thin person who has diabetes? Or even, diabetes versus having an issue with your thyroid. Why is one seen as maybe better than the other? And by the way, diabetes is a largely genetic condition. You can't eat your way into diabetes. Just a heads up, because I know people are going to be saying that. But hang on, they're eating bad, quote, bad food. And here's the thing, right, with food, because you could say, okay, well, I'm not going to tell them to lose weight, but I'm going to tell them that they should not be eating that food. That really, really, really contributes towards poor mental health. Almost every single one of my clients who I help unlearn fat phobia has many, many stories from a very young age of well-meaning loved ones saying, don't eat that, you should eat this. And how that destroyed their self-esteem, their relationship with food, their well-being, their mental health. Like it can be just one comment. The world is very well educated on how many calories this has, the fat content of that, the nutritional value of, like, we are smart, we know that people say that you should eat a cucumber and not eat something that is perceived as unhealthy. Like, it's not like we've gone through our lives and not picked that message up. We have picked that message up. And so we don't need someone else to say, hey, did you know? Like, we have heard that message a bajillion times. And hearing it again is just another paper cut, or even a huge sword, is really, really painful. And it's not helpful. Shaming fat people actually makes them fatter. Not that being fat is bad, but it's the opposite of what theoretically you want to achieve. So restricting people's food intake, say if you have children and saying you're not allowed to eat that, eat this, it really, really is setting children up, young people up, and adults up with high chances of disordered eating or even a full-blown eating disorder. We have to be very, very careful with the way that we talk about food because it is deeply personal and powerful. So, and again, if you have an adult person that you're concerned about what food they're eating, they're an adult person. You telling them that you have seen what they're doing and you're judging them and that you think it's wrong isn't going to enhance your relationship, and isn't probably going to make them change what they're doing long term. And you know, who that's even saying that what they're doing is bad, you know? So an example here of this is that I used to have an eating disorder, right? I used to have an eating disorder. I had a shit ton of trauma growing up. Lots of trauma. I ended up in, when I was 17, I was homeless, living in a shelter for young people. I ended up meeting a 30-year-old guy who was a massive creep. And I ended up living with him. He was deeply abusive. My life was shit, like close to death, terrible, because my mental health was that bad. The only thing that I had in my life that gave me a little bit of joy was food. And I'm not saying that that is every fat person's experience, but that was my experience, was that once a week I was able to go to the shop and have some food, because this guy was also denying me food. I viewed that as deeply pathological, that there was something really, really wrong with me. It was a natural response to being denied food and being told that what I wanted to eat was wrong. And from there, I developed an eating disorder. So food saved me. And food was the only joy I had during the 2 years I was with that guy. So if someone had come along and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be eating that," and all they saw was someone who was fat, eating food that they perceived was unhealthy, what would that have done to me? You know, what would that how would that have helped me? It wouldn't have. And you know, you might say, well, that's not my fat person situation. And it might not be, but you know, who says that eating food is is a morally corrupt thing to do? And I know that you don't think that, you know, you're just worried about your person, but I think letting them be them is probably the best you can do for them. Now, moving to that idea, that first, you know, the question that I read out about this guy didn't find his girlfriend attractive. I want to read out an experience that I had. So this is a blog post that I did 5 years ago. Okay, it's called "Why I Was Happy When My Boyfriend Told Me He Wasn't Attracted to Me." Okay, I'm going to read this out. There's going to be a link in the bio too, in the show notes. Okay, I always got the impression one of my partners just wasn't that into me. Let me rephrase, just not that into my looks. My suspicion was confirmed 4 years in when he told me he didn't find me as attractive because I had put on a little weight. Walking in the park at winter, when he shamefully told me his secret, I assured him I would, quote, become better. I would lose weight. The next week, I went on what would be my last diet. I vowed I would lose the weight the, quote, healthy way, and my partner would finally see me, see how wonderful I was, and think I was the most beautiful person in the world. Of course, as all diets do, it failed. I put on more weight. I became resentful. Why couldn't he just love me the way that I was? Why did he have to tell me something that was so devastating to me? I was filled with shame, anger, and confusion. Why I am now happy that he gave me this information is that it led me on a path to self-discovery around beauty. 6 months after we split, I asked him, "Would you have liked me better if I was thinner?" "Yes," he said. This time, his words didn't hurt. It didn't hurt because since I gave up on that last diet, I have learnt all about fat positivity and feminism. I have learnt about our patriarchal society and beauty ideals, how they hurt all of us. "Why would a thin girlfriend be important to you?" I continued. He explained that having a thin partner improves his status, that having a small girlfriend makes him feel more masculine. Like a lot of people, he's never explored our society's beauty ideals. We are constantly told that the most desirable are white, young, and thin. This belief will hurt him as he searches for a new partner. It will hurt him when he finds a new partner and she ages. It will hurt him if she ever puts on weight. It will hurt her too, as it hurt me, knowing that the man I adored would prefer a different version of me. Now I know it's not about me. It's a byproduct of living in a society that objectifies women. Men seeing their partners as status symbols and women believing their worth is determined by the number on the scale, amongst other things. If I could travel back to that time in that icy cold park, I would have such a different reaction. I wouldn't have seen my body as the problem, but the fact that my partner believed my worth was decreased as my weight increased. I would encourage my partner to explore his idea of what is desirable, and if he couldn't see the beauty of my waves and honey, then I would remove myself from the relationship. So if you're in the same situation as I was, no, it's not your fault. It's this fucked up beauty ideal. You deserve to be with someone who accepts you for who you are, and if they don't, leave them. By the way, my now ex is a wonderful, kind person. He didn't tell me about his feelings to be cruel, but to try and strengthen our relationship. It just didn't work out the way he planned. If you are worried about your loved one, and it's someone that you're in a relationship with, a romantic or sexual relationship, and you say it's about health, I want to challenge you to dig a little deeper of, is it about health? Or is it about your definition of what is attractive? And is that because our society decided that women need to be, or people need to be young, thin, non-disabled, white, etc., etc.? And think about, why is it that we're told we need to be these things? What systems have told us that whiteness, thinness, youth, being non-disabled are the most desirable? Those systems are racism, the patriarchy, colonization, sexism, etc., 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 right? And it's so hard to unlearn this stuff, especially when it comes down to, it's my preference. This is my preference. Thinness is my preference. Our preferences like that are not made in a bubble, right? You weren't born and in your brain was the idea that thinness is superior. You were told that. We were all told that. We are all bombarded with images of what is attractive day in, day out. And that means that we've been influenced by them, right? And I feel like it's a very narrow world when we can only see beauty in a limited number of bodies. Like I do feel for people who don't have the experience of being able to deeply appreciate all different body types, because it just makes the world a little bit more magical, you know? And so there is a way out of that. And the way out of that isn't telling your spouse that they need to change their body. Because, one, weight loss doesn't work. It is not sustainable. And two, it is going to damage your relationship. And even if you do it in a nice way, it will still damage your relationship. And three, it means that you're never going to be truly satisfied, because if your partner goes on a diet, their weight will increase in the long term. So your partner will have a bigger body than they have currently. And if you're not satisfied with their body right now, then, you know, it's probably not going to change for the smaller. And they are going to age. Their body is going to change in other ways. And so if you're not satisfied with their body right now, it's probably not going to change for the better. Therefore, what you can change is the way that you perceive your partner's body. That is changeable. The way that you perceive all bodies and your internalized racism and sexism and la 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 la. And by the way, we all have internalized bigotry, right? I have internalized fat phobia and racism and sexism and colonization, all that type of stuff, right? Because I've been born into this world. It's impossible for me to have not picked it up. But it's my job to try and unlearn that stuff. It's my job if I want to be a better person, and I do, right? I think we all do want to be a better person. And if you're listening to this podcast, it means that you care, right? You care, and you care deeply if you've taken the time to listen to this podcast. And if you can take that deep caring and love and use that to help you work on the way that you perceive fatness, I think that would be really, really helpful for the person that you love and for yourself. It will make the world more colourful. It will make you satisfied with different things that you previously thought that you weren't satisfied, not just fatness, you know? So I'm going to read a couple of other, questions that people have put onto the internet. And if we think about what we've just gone through, what we might answer to these questions, okay? So this one is, quote, "I'm not physically attracted to my wife. Her physical appearance has always been an issue and it only gets worse. She has put on a considerable amount of weight and this is very unattractive to me. I've tried to hint to her tactfully, I'm not insensitive, that it bothers me, but she only gets offended." Okay, so let's just pause here. So I'm not physically attracted to my wife. It's always been an issue and it only gets worse. Okay, so, first off, why did this person marry the wife, the person that they are not attracted to? Fucked up to begin with. She's put on a considerable amount of weight. This is really unattractive to me. Okay, so that's a him problem, right? That's a him problem. It's not a her problem. And I'm presuming that this person is a him. We don't know. I've tried to hint to her tactfully. I'm not insensitive, and so he's saying, I'm not insensitive, but she gets offended. And so he says he's doing it tactfully, but it's not tactfully because she's offended, because it's an offensive thing to do. It seems like it's not my place to say so anymore. Instead, there's a gnawing silence and growing indifference to sex. I'd like to say that she is so beautiful inside that the outside doesn't matter, but that's not true. In many ways, children, finances, practical things, we communicate well. I respect her and she's a good mum, but this war between us is an increasing source of emotional distress, anguish, loss of intimacy, and hormonal hell. What do you suggest? Okay, so what we suggest here is for this person to probably go to therapy and to learn about fat politics, to read some books, listen to some podcasts, and stop continuing to hurt his wife. It might be an idea for them not to be together if the wife knew that he was talking about her like this. It's always been an issue and it only gets worse. Her physical appearance, I mean, that's really very, very unkind and shows really a deep lack of respect for their person. Okay, so this other person says, when my husband and I first started dating, I was extremely attracted to his physical appearance. But throughout the years of our marriage, he's put on a considerable amount of weight. When I tell him he needs to lose weight, he gets angry and really hurt. Is it unfair of me to want him to lose weight? I mean, it's not unfair for you to want him to lose weight because this person is programmed to think that weight loss is good, right? Being thinner is good. And looking at their husband from these, when they were younger, when you first meet your spouse, they're gonna be great. If you're attracted to them, they're gonna be great. They're gonna age. They're gonna put on weight. Their body is gonna change. Okay. And that's just the way that it is. Some people to some degree and some people to more degree, right? And so the more that we detangle these ideas of our spouse needing to look a certain way or objectifying our spouse, the more comfort we're going to find in the world. right? So to this person, it would be like, yeah, it is unfair to tell him constantly that he needs to lose weight. This person needs to go and learn about fat positivity and go to therapy and all that type of stuff. So I asked my followers, what would you like me to say to well-meaning people who are concerned for your health or want you to lose weight? What message would you want me to pass on? What impact does it have when a loved one comments on your weight and tells you to be thinner? And this is what people said. So this is from my followers. I know I am fat. I knew it last time you told me and the time before. Just stop. That they're treating me like a problem, not a person. That despite all the good that I bring to the world, I'm still not enough. It makes me feel like you wouldn't love or take care of me if I got ill. If I did get ill, I'd probably keep it from you because of your judgment. I'd be alone. Health and weight aren't correlated, and if they are concerned, re health, vote for health issues. Gaining weight is often a sign of healing, but body comments are never welcome. Yeah, so that's another thing is a lot of the time when people are healing from an eating disorder or disordered eating, that means that they will gain weight. And so that's just a normal part of healing. And so we see a lot of people who are in treatment who are set back a huge amount because family members say, oh no, you're putting on weight, and it really fucks them up. Body comments are detrimental and triggering to mental health and eating disorders. Reevaluate if they are actually well-meaning. That health risks of weight cycling are higher than being fat. Please trust that I know my body better than you do. I know what I need. My size is of no surprise to me. It is not helpful to mention it as I know myself. It affects my mental health negatively, impacts my self-esteem. I want to cut contact. No one should be commenting on someone's body, period. Thin people have health issues too. It's not exclusive to fat people. The impact of it is it feels like I failed them, failed the family, that I am a failure, that their love is conditional. Fat people already know that they are fat, you dumb fucks. Funny. I know I am fat. I live in my body. They act like I'm not aware of my weight. I am. Other people's concerns just add pressure and makes me want to eat more, show that they care in other ways. Think about how their comment may trigger a trauma response as a result. To be more understanding of my trauma history with food and weight when commenting. Mainly, that the science says dieting does not work. I am not a failure. I am the norm. I was heavy as a kid. I'm still in therapy because I was treated as less because of my weight by my peers and my loved ones. I would like to have a proper answer to the health concerns, which is never really their true concern. So this person is like, health concerns is masking something else, and it often is. It often is masking fat phobia. That the things that we've learned about fatness and also desirability. It is harmful when they body shame, more concerned with looks than my well-being. Weight does not equal healthiness. Mental health impacts a feeling like your body is wrong and you are too weak to change it. There is so much more to me than my size. No comments about weight are helpful. Fat or thin, it fuels the idea that our weight is our worth. I've spent 45 years hating my body because you have always told me it needed changing. When people bring up my weight, it feels like my physical body is all they see or care about. You're worried about my health, but you're happy to drink lots of alcohol with me regularly. I used to think like you, but now I know better. It's okay to admit you're wrong. Learn, then teach. Be more concerned with our mental and emotional well-being. Please stop telling me about your new diet. I didn't ask and I don't care. I grew up to have an eating disorder because of adults saying this to me as a child. We know about our weight. We know the, quote, concerns and complications. I know you think that this is helpful, but all I hear is that I am not enough as I am. That they are asking me to sacrifice my mental health to diet. Everything that they think they know about the health of fat people is untrue. Your comments make it clear to me that you can't or won't see beyond my size. This dismissal of who I am is hurtful. For me, I had to choose between trying to be thin or health-promoting behaviors. And we have a longer response here from someone. I'd like them to know that when commenting on my weight, however well-intentioned, it doesn't come off that way for me. It brings me such shame and really knocks my self-worth, because what I'm hearing is that they see me as bad, wrong, or something to be fixed. It also feels like they only see me as one thing, fat. And to them, that is bad, and that I'm not living to my full potential. As someone who grew up with a mother who was so hyper aware of my weight, mainly due to her own body hang-ups, I think, I have always felt not good enough. That my body is the common denominator in how I am perceived in everything I say or do. I often wonder how I would have turned out if I had just been left alone and allowed to live my life without feeling like I was never good enough unless I was thin. The issues around self-worth are filtered into everything. It affects how I advocate for myself and how I am often afraid to take up space. I think I would want people to just stop and look inward before they speak about another person's body. Ask themselves where it's coming from, and really at the end of the day, will it change anything or affect their lives anyway? Just leave fat people alone. Let them live. We don't need a commentary. And the last comment here is, thank you for your concern, but please know that bodies exist and function best in many different shapes and sizes. Personally, I know I'm healthier both mentally and physically than with the disordered relationship with food that would be required to achieve a lower weight. I would say that it's important for more people to understand that health warnings about being fat are overblown. For many, many people, gaining weight after restricting, over-exercising and weight cycling, particularly if you gain weight and then have a pretty stable weight, is actually healthier. Not just for your mental health and confidence, but for your body. Your health markers will actually improve when you focus on them, not trying to just lose weight. I wish my family knew that when they praise my siblings' extreme weight loss and praise diets, it feels like they are telling me to lose weight. It feels like they don't have the guts to tell me I should be like my siblings, so they pile on the praise so I can connect the dots. It's never subtle like they think it is, and we see right through it to their message, that they are disappointed in our body and think it's not okay. It feels like they think my body is their personal failure and they must remedy it. Not necessarily something to say to them directly, but I wonder how many others feel this way with their family's pressure and expectations. It hurts when I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I have figured out how to enjoy exercise again, and I get out and move pretty much every day, walking the dog, running with the dog, going to the gym, hiking, sports. I'm much stronger. I'm getting more nutrients. I have more energy. I'm happier and overall better. And it sucks knowing if your family could pick, they'd want you to go back to disordered eating and restriction and harmful pathways because weight is more important to them. They can't see past the weight. Yeah, those are really, I think, powerful responses directly from fat people. And a lot of fat people can't say this to their loved ones who tell them to lose weight because, you know, they wouldn't get the response that they wanted. You know, their loved one wouldn't say, shit, I fucked up, I'm so sorry. You know, and so it's not safe for them to do that, and that's really, really sad. And I just want to end with just really getting home this idea of there's going to be a lot of people who are like, well, what about their knees, or what about they're about to have a heart attack, but what about their joints, or what about this, or what about blah 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 blah. There is no way to lose weight and keep it off long term. That goes for fad diets, lifestyle changes, and even bariatric surgery. We just don't have any information and data to show that there are ways to manipulate human body size in a way that is something that's going to be lasting long term. We don't have that data. So even if we knew that every fat person is deeply unhealthy and, you know, their knees are about to buckle under the weight of them, by the way, it's not true, then we can't, there's nothing we can do to not be fat, right? So what we can do if we want to support our health are many of the different health promoting behaviors, which include dismantling fat phobia and all the other things that we didn't think that were related to health. And what we need from you is love and acceptance and support, and to know that you are that person and place we can go to who is not going to tell us that we are bad, that we need to do this or do that. If you do that, it just continues to erode the relationship. And I really got to tell you, I mentioned it before, so many people have had devastating consequences because of loved ones telling things, saying things to them, and they end up cutting off those people from their life or reducing the amount of time they spend with them because they refuse to do anything else. And I don't think that if you care about someone, if you had the choice to just not say anything and have them in your life, I think you would prefer that, right? And then some people might say, well, if I don't say something, they might die and then I won't have them in my life. But, we just don't know that. We don't know that. Do we want to lead with kindness and compassion? Or do we want to make people feel awful, which in turn negatively impacts their health? So let me round up everything that I just said. 1. What if you want to support a fat person to lose weight, or you're concerned about their health? So the first thing here is intentional weight loss doesn't work. We've got over 100 years worth of studies to prove that. And we'll have the link of all of the different resources for you as well. So you can look into all the data that intentional weight loss doesn't work. And that means any type of weight loss with any method. Being fat does not equate to being unhealthy. You can support your health in weight neutral ways. And so you can engage in many different activities and things outside of focusing on weight. And studies show that they will stick more if you are not focusing on weight. Health is a really complicated topic, and shaming fat people is really, really unhelpful. What are you trying to achieve by telling a fat person to lose weight? If you care about their health, then you also need to care about their mental health. Telling someone in a, quote, nice way or encouraging them to do certain things is still just as harmful. No one owes you health, and focusing on it so much is healthism and ableism in practice. Is your definition of what is attractive based on infantilization, racism, patriarchy, and other harmful oppressive systems? The fact that you love someone and care enough about them to want them to be healthy is a beautiful thing. And the best way that you can support your loved one is loving them unconditionally, no matter what their weight is, and celebrate them for exactly who they are right now. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with one last thing, which is HAES Health Sheet. So HAES is Health at Every Size. So HAES stands for Health at Every Size. Healthsheets.com is a resource if you want to look more into the common conditions that are associated with fatness, and learn more about how to live with them, how they're created, what's going on, so you can understand. Like, say if you do have a loved one who has type 2 diabetes, and you're like, oh my god, they need to be doing this and that, and they need to be becoming thin to help themselves. The Hayes Health Sheets is going to help you understand what is helpful outside of weight loss, and how this condition came to be, and the mechanisms and what to do. Yeah, so in case you're interested in that type of stuff, and again, like, this is imperfect. There's going to be things where there's different areas I've not covered, but yeah, hopefully this has been helpful. Maybe you've picked up something, maybe not. I know that you're coming from a place of love, and I hope that with that love you can maybe make a tweak to the way that you're approaching fat folks, and just love them and accept them, the same way that you want to be loved and accepted, right? Yeah. And if fat folks are listening, hey, you're rad and amazing, and big fatty hugs to you, big fatty hugs to everyone. And thank you for hanging out with me today. And I guess we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Perfect.